And for a few moments, this prisoner and the terrible guard were there clutching each other's hands, experiencing the love, she said, as she had never experienced with such intensity in her life. Now what had happened? Well, God said, you obey. And she obeyed. But she didn't have love to do this. But when she obeyed, God supplied the love. Obedience is the key that opens the floodgates to God's love coming into our lives. That love is an inexhaustible resource. It's there. It's a reservoir. But we have to open the gate, and we open the gate by obedience. So this love comes from God, and we obey. But what is this love? I'm sure you've heard this thing about the four loves. C.S. Lewis wrote a famous book called The Four Loves. Now I don't know whether we can really use those biblical words with so much precision and say that each time this word is used, this is the meaning. Because very often, for example, two of those words, agape and phileo, are used synonymously. Sometimes they mean the same thing. But the C.S. Lewis had these four loves. Eros, which is romantic love. Storge, which is love, affection within the family. Phileo, which is love between friends, friendship, brotherly love. And agape, which he called God's love, the Christian type of love. But this word agape that is used here was already in use, but it was not a very common word. For example, in the Old Testament, translation of the Old Testament into the Greek, the Septuagint is called. In that translation, this word agape occurs only 20 times, whereas in the New Testament, the verb and the noun occur 216 times. The verb and the noun comes 99 times in Paul. So obviously, the Christian church took it and gave it, invested it with some meaning. It became the characteristic Christian word for love, agape. And so when the Latin Bible was being translated by Jerome, he decided not to use the normal word for love, which was amor, because it gave certain ideas of romantic love, but instead he used the word caritas, which is the word which he felt gave this idea of the decisive action, acting out love. And I suppose it served its purpose, and that's why you find in the King James Version, you find charity coming from caritas, charity suffereth long. Because he wanted to separate it from this romantic, automatic type of love that people talk about. So that's something about the Christian understanding of love. Let's go back to this whole thing of love is a way to follow. We make love our aim, as it says in Romans, in 1 Corinthians 14 and 1. There is a revolutionary thought here. And that thought is that love is not only a means to an end, it is an end in itself. In other words, loving is one of our key ambitions in life. You know, we are used to having ambitions always defined in terms of measurable goals. And you know, that's good, that's important, but you can't measure love in that way. For example, you say, I'll help her so that she will become a great person, right? I will teach her so that she will do well in school. You know, these are expressions of love that have measurable goals. I will help this person so that she can become a great athlete or whatever. And measurable goals are very important. They have shown us that just faithfully working hard is not enough. We must find, we have in this competitive world, we have to find the best way to do things, because otherwise we get left behind. We have to find the best way to achieve the most in the shortest time using the least resources. So measurable goals are important. So we are always looking for new methods, for creativity, for risk taking in order to achieve these goals. So that is important. That's an important aspect of life. But that's not all there is to life. There are some things that cannot be measured in terms of such goals. For example, these are deeper, more basic aspects of life. Our deep ambition in life is to be loving. And the measurable goal there is, I have loved so and so. I have loved this person. Not only by loving I was able to achieve so much, because sometimes we can't achieve much that seems achievable by loving. For example, sometimes we will love this person and say, I helped this person to become great by loving this person. Other times, you care for a helpless, dying pauper, and you change and wash that person's soiled clothes, and you help this person to die with dignity. Now there isn't much of a measurable goal. Society hasn't been made, more productive as a result of caring for a pauper who was dying, But as you know, this is what Mother Teresa's Sisters of Charity did, and they were able to enamor the whole world by this, because the world knew that there was something special about this. Christian love loves because loving is our ambition. Take another example. Adoption. Christians are now thinking very seriously about adoption, and I think that's a very good thing that the church has realized we need to be doing, where children who are not wanted can be wanted and given a loving place. But we know that a higher percentage of adopted children become rebellious. And after showing them so much love, several of them might just break the heart of the person who loved them. Now, was it wrong to adopt? No. Because Christians use love as their aim. And, of course, very often, much later, maybe after the parents have died, these people come back to God and things like that. But even if they don't, we have done what we were called to do. We have loved. We have been Christian. And I think the world is looking for people who do good simply because it's good, rather than people who do good with ulterior motives. My wife has a special calling to care for people who have psychological problems. So several people come to our home, and some of them stay in our homes. Sometimes when they're coming in for a nervous breakdown or something, they might come and stay with us. And I must tell you, this is quite a challenge to me, because I get very impatient with these people. But this is what my wife feels God has called her, to give one place where these people are not hammered. Because our society is impatient with psychologically difficult people. So when they go to the world, they get hammered. And so she says, I must give them a place where they can come and not get hit. And we are the ones who get hit in play, in turn, But and I feel that God has given her that calling. And we've seen some people who've come through and who've developed to become, well, not many, but at least one or two, who've developed to become wonderful Christians as a result of this. Let's take another scenario of love being an end in itself. I don't know whether you know the name Robertson McQuilkin. Robertson McQuilkin was the president of Columbia International University in Columbia, South Carolina, not the Columbia University in New York, but this in